Hello everyone, in this video we'll be discussing how to compile a nice PhD application. I am myself a recent PhD graduate. I currently work as an engineer at Google, and a few years ago I also went through this process of applying for PhD programs in chemical engineering, and using the tips and strategies that I'll discuss in this video, I was able to receive admission offers from universities like Cornell, University of Wisconsin, University of Minnesota, and Purdue, which are some of the world's best PhD programs in chemical engineering. There are a lot of strategies involved in building a nice PhD application, all the way from getting good grades, gaining research experience, letters of recommendations, and a few other things as well. And in this video, I would like to discuss my top strategies and tips which I think are important so that you can get into your dream university. Some of the information I'll provide in this video might be new, or some of the information might already be known to you either from your classmates or professors. In that case, I would still like to re-emphasize those points because they can be quite important as universities evaluate your PhD application. And before you watch the rest of this video, you want to first decide whether a PhD is the right decision for you. Because doing a PhD can take about 3 to 5 years, and it's a significant portion of your life, and you want to first think about your future career plans and interest and decide whether you should pursue a PhD or not. I'll keep that as a topic of separate discussion, and in this video assume that you're either potentially interested in applying for a PhD or have already decided to apply and you want to know how to build a nice application. First, let's understand how is a PhD application evaluated. If you've ever gone through the undergraduate admission process, you would have noticed that universities typically have a much more streamlined process for evaluating undergrad applications. In the US, undergrad applications are evaluated by the university staff members. They would look at your high school grades, SAT scores, understand whether you're a diverse student, and based on some of these criteria, you receive an undergrad admission offer. In some countries, the undergrad admissions are decided based on the entrance examination scores. A PhD application decision, however, is a lot more different. They are evaluated by the university departments that you're applying to, and in most cases, the professors in your field or the professor with whom you'll be working with for your PhD research will have the final say in the application decision. And you want to demonstrate 3 main qualities in your application. You want to first show that you are good academically and that you have good knowledge of the foundational subjects in your field. You also want to show that you'll be able to perform research and that you can sustain research for the next 3 to 5 years that you'll be pursuing your PhD for. You also want to show that you're genuinely excited and passionate about the research field that you're proposing to pursue your research in. Any professor who is reviewing your PhD application material will try to look for these qualities while they're deciding whether or not they should extend you an offer for the PhD program at their university. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have a good GPA. And this may sound like a pretty obvious thing to say, but the GPA is like the most important aspect of your PhD application. Because this is the only way for a professor to understand and gain confidence that you have good knowledge of the core topics in your field that you're proposing to pursue your PhD in. A bad GPA can hurt your chances of getting into top tier PhD programs, and in some cases, your application may not even make it all the way to the professors and may get filtered in the initial screening steps by the department. So if you're an undergraduate or a master's student, make sure that you try your best to increase your GPA as much as possible before you start applying for PhD programs. The next most important aspect of a PhD application is showing that you have some research experience. Imagine yourself as the professor who is reviewing your application. They want to know that whether you have an idea of what you'll be doing for the next 5 years, and more importantly, do you have the potential to succeed as a researcher if you were to join their lab or any other lab in the department. And the best way to show that you have some research experience is by taking up projects while you're an undergraduate or a master's student, by taking up internships or even self-projects. To do research projects, figure out any subjects in your curriculum that you've liked so far, any topics that have resonated with you. You can also look up if there are any cool emerging topics in your discipline that you feel excited and are passionate about. You can look up if there are any professors either in your department or any other department at your university who are working on similar topics that you're interested in. You should reach out to those professors, express your interest around working with them, and ask if they'll be open to supervise you for a research project. You will find that typically professors are very open to supervising enthusiastic undergraduate students. Depending on your interest, you may want to do not just one, but multiple projects while you're at school. And if you're able to get your name on a journal or a conference paper while you're a student, then that's usually a big plus for PhD applications. Taking up research projects is also quite important because it will help you to formulate a story in your statement of purpose around what got you interested in the field that you're proposing to pursue your PhD in. Research projects are also quite helpful because they will help you to secure people who can write recommendation letters for your graduate applications. So If you're an undergraduate or a master's student and even thinking about potentially applying for PhD programs, then I would highly recommend that you take up research projects immediately and while you're at school. Let's talk about recommendation letters. Most US universities will ask for about 2 to 3 recommendation letters so that the admissions committee can understand the experiences of previous supervisors and colleagues who have worked with you in the past. So you can get these recommendation letters from research project supervisors, managers, and course instructors as well. In my experience though, the most ideal people to write these letters are research project supervisors so that they can vouch specifically for your research capabilities in the letters. And if you're able to get all of your letters from research project supervisors, then I think this strengthens your application the most. If you haven't asked for these recommendation letters from anyone in the past, then I think the process is pretty straightforward. You should let your referees know a few months in advance of your PhD application deadline that you're applying for PhD programs at a few universities and that you would highly appreciate if they can write recommendation letters vouching for your research capabilities as well as their experiences working with you in the past. One bonus tip I want to give here for these letters is that you should look for connections between your potential options for referees and the professors at your target university. And if you can get recommendation letters from professors who know some of the professors at your target university, then I think this further improves your chances of receiving an admission offer from your target university. I myself was able to receive admission offers from 2 universities where I was applying because I followed this strategy. The next item in your PhD application is going to be the statement of purpose. This is where you write an essay to the admissions committee explaining your motivations for applying to the PhD program, your career goals, as well as the reasons that have led you to pursue a PhD in the field that you're interested in. Based on my personal experiences talking to professors while I was a PhD student myself, professors very closely read statement of purposes of PhD applicants. And the quality of your statement of purpose can often make or break your application. This statement should really be written like a story where you would explain your choices of pursuing your undergraduate or master's degree and the experiences that you have gained from that point until now through projects and internships that have led you to now apply for the PhD program in your field. Be sure to highlight the following points in your statement and clearly emphasize your career goals, your passion for pursuing research in your field, experiences you have gained through projects and internships that have trained you to pursue research in that field, your reasons for applying to that particular PhD program, and be sure to mention the specific professors you would be eager to work with should you receive an offer from that university. I would highly recommend that you start working on your statement of purpose at least a few months before the PhD application deadlines. Clearly spend sufficient time thinking about your motivations and articulating these points properly in your statement. Starting early is also a good idea because you will want to also tailor your statement of purposes to different universities and PhD programs that you'll be applying. Another item you'll need for your PhD applications is going to be the CV. And if you followed what I talked about earlier on getting good grades and taking up research projects, then the CV is mainly a matter of presenting yourself professionally. In your CV, you should highlight your academic accomplishments, mention all of your undergraduate and master's degree that you have pursued or are currently pursuing, clearly state your GPAs in each of your degree. You should certainly mention your research interests and all the research projects that you have done, along with the major accomplishments that you have had in each research project. You should certainly mention all of your awards and any scholarships that you may have gotten in your undergraduate or master's programs, and mention any publications that you've been a part of. Note that you can also mention any publications that have not yet been published but are currently in peer review process. Finally, feel free to mention any volunteering activities or any extracurricular activities that you have done or feel personally excited about. One last item you'll need for your PhD applications is going to be your score for the graduate record examination or the GRE. And if you're an international student, then you may also be asked to provide your score for the test of English as a foreign language or the TOEFL examination. In my opinion, this part of the PhD application is less important than the other aspects that I covered earlier in this video. That being said, you should not take these examinations too lightly and get an atrocious score because that can hurt your chances for receiving an admission offer from your dream university. For the GRE quantitative section, if you are coming from a STEM background and are applying for a STEM PhD program, then I think you should intrinsically get a good score on that section. For the GRE verbal and writing sections, there is usually much more tolerance for less scores, and I think you should make sure that you study enough so that you get a decent score on those sections. I think I've covered most of the important points I wanted to make regarding PhD applications. Now, I would like to quickly go over a couple of miscellaneous tips and FAQs that I get regarding PhD admission process. The first is that you should be quite selective in your choices of the universities where you're applying. And the reason is that PhD admission offers are typically made when there's a good match between your proposed field of interest and the availability of professors and the funding in that department where you're applying. You can have a great PhD application, but if there are not enough professors in the department you're applying, or even the professors that are there don't have funding, then you will just not receive an admission offer. So the best way to find out whether there are enough professors in the department you're applying is to carefully browse the faculty web pages and their research areas before you apply. And if you find that there are only 1 to 2 professors with whom you will be potentially interested in working with, then I would recommend that you write a personalized email to those professors expressing your interest in potentially working with them as a PhD student, and inquire whether they'll be taking PhD students in the year that you'll be joining. One question I often get is whether a publication is required to get into a PhD program. I think that if you have a publication as an undergraduate or a master's student, then that certainly looks really impressive and will boost your chances of getting into places like MIT or Stanford. But for most other cases, as long as you demonstrate that you have good research experience through projects, then that's usually also very good to get into world-class PhD programs. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all the best for your PhD applications.